Hello, welcome back to the Recruitment Academy. Today is video 8 and we're going to be talking all about candidate screening. So when I talk about candidate screen, we also have my glamorous assistant here as well today. This is Louis, he's our head of happiness at Fresh Perspectives. He doesn't look very happy at the moment, but he is. So when I say candidate screening, I don't mean just kind of screening CVs and applications. I actually mean like verbally screening candidates, qualification call, screening call. You might want to call it your first stage, telephone interview, whatever it is, but it is a phone call, not a video call, where you're, I suppose, pre-qualifying the candidates to see if you want to bring them in to a face-to-face interview. So I thought it's a good place to talk about this now, because we've talked a lot about how and where to find candidates. So once you've got them, you've attracted them, you've found them, now you need to actually, obviously you've reviewed their CVs and hopefully you've shortlisted everyone that looks like they could have potential, even if they're not, the CV might not look perfect for the job, but they look like they could have some transferable skills. Still speak to them. It's very surprising sometimes how people genuinely blow you away on the phone, but their CV isn't amazing. And it's because not everybody is good at writing a CV, but it isn't why you're hiring them, unless you're hiring them to do recruitment. Then you want them to be pretty good at writing a CV, because they need to be reviewing CVs. But always read between the lines wherever you can. I know that might mean that you've got more people to speak to, and so it will make your recruitment process longer. But you might be missing out on some absolute superstars by just judging people off what they put on a CV, because sometimes people will have got some guidance from a company on what to put on, and they might have made it sound really corporate and serious and professional, and that might not be who they are, but that's the advice that they've had, or someone's written their CV for them. On the total other side, they might never have had any experience, and they might have created the CV ages ago and they've not updated it, or they may never have needed a CV. They've had to quickly put one together, but then they're not sure what to put on there. They're not sure what to display, how to talk about themselves in the best possible way. And you might be missing out on them being an amazing candidate just because you're judging them on their ability to write about themselves in a Word document. So always give people the benefit of the doubt and read between the lines where you can and speak to as many people as possible. So the candidate screening call or qualification call, whatever you want to call it, is something that we would normally do for our customers. So we'll run the recruitment campaign, we will screen the candidates verbally, and our screening call is like 30 to 40 minutes long. We have a document that we go through where we ask all weird and wonderful questions about who they are as people, what motivates and drives them, what do they care about, what's important to them. We also give them a good amount of information about the business that we're representing, and we talk about the job itself, what it is, what kind of person they're looking for, what skills and experience they need, and then we question the candidate in line with that, and talk about loads of different things. But we spend a lot of time on the phone because it's really important to get under the skin and really understand people. Why are they looking for a job? Why are they leaving a job? What is it they're looking for? What makes them happy? What don't they like? Who are they outside of work? There's so many different sections to it, but by the end of this video you'll understand all about it, and you'll be able to deliver a kick-ass qualification call to figure out whether a candidate is good for your opportunity or not, and whether you want to progress to the interview stage. So because we would normally do it, and then when we send the candidates over to a customer, they might still then do a telephone interview and then a face-to-face, and then they might have a final stage after that. So if you're doing it yourself, I would probably say that this might negate the need for a telephone interview afterwards, unless it's somebody else that's going to be doing the telephone interview. Maybe if you're not the hiring manager and you're just helping out in recruitment, and the hiring manager might still want to do a telephone interview. So it may or may not be part of your interview process, or it might be, as we see it when we do it, kind of like a pre-interview step. But remember, when you're speaking to candidates, this is the first time you've spoken to them. So your advert or your social media or your careers page or your website might be one of your first touch points with a candidate, and I suppose you are speaking to them in the words that you use. You're engaging them, you're captivating an audience. But this is the first time that a person from your business has spoken to the candidate, who is also a person. So you've got to impress them. It is interviews, there is another video about interviews as well. It's a two-way process. You are finding out about them to see if they're fit for you, but they are also finding out about you to see if you're a good fit for them. So you are being judged on this very first call, as well as your interviews. They are judging you, they are assessing you. Hopefully they've got questions for you. At the same time, they're trying to impress you. And you have got to be thinking, I've got to impress them. You've got to have an impact, a positive one, hopefully. You've got to wow them, to woo them, to make them want you. It's a very outdated point of view or thought process when people are like, well, you know, they've got to prove to us, and they'll literally grill the candidates to within an inch of their lives and put them off. Like, that is the experience that I used to have, that I had. So what we're going back, like, God, maybe I don't want to tell you. We'll go over 10 years. I won't give you the exact number. But I hated the interviews that I had after university, and I just thought that that's what an interview was. I was there to be kicked around the room, metaphorically. No one actually kicked me. Asked all kinds of crazy questions, and I was judged, and I had to think on the spot, and I came out of some interviews and I actually cried. I mean, I was 20, 22, 23, straight out of university, never really had a proper job. And I thought that's what interviews were. So every time I had an interview, I felt sick with nerves because that's what I thought I had to be subjected to. I now know very differently that that isn't the case, but some people still feel that way. And some people who are being the interviewer still feel that way, which makes me very sad, but there's not much I can do about that. So all I can do is tell you guys what I feel like you should do on these videos, and hopefully you take it on board and you implement it. So be nice, be enthusiastic, energetic, be passionate about the business that you represent and the job that you do, and be curious, be interested in the candidate. Make them feel like you really care about getting to know them, that you're well excited about the prospect of interviewing them, and them being a good fit for your business. It's so much about that kind of engagement piece and building relationships and rapport with people. So outside of that, the whole kind of how you are on the call, make sure that you create a document. So as I said before, we have a document, we have a template, and then we edit it for every single vacancy that we take on, even if it's the same company. We'll always see if we need to tweak how we introduce the business, depending on what the job is, because obviously you've got your sales people, your marketing people, they're really engaging, a little bit more extrovert, and they want that kind of like whole personable, excited feel to it. And you might get someone on more of an analytical position that might not want such a effervescent, I've not used that word for ages, pitch about the business. You might need to tone it down. So really think about who is going to be interested in this job, what is the job, what kinds of people are you trying to attract, and how would they like to be communicated with. Put together a document about how you talk about the business, how you talk about the position, introduce yourself and what you do, and then it's a document filled with questions, I suppose, and a place to write your answers. So either whether you printed off the form and you're handwriting on it, or it's on a Word document, which I think is easier, and you're just taking notes as you speak to the candidates. It's really, really, really important to capture that information, because if you've got quite a few people to speak to and there's time in between the first and the last call, you will not always remember the first people that you spoke to as well as the people that you most recently spoke to. So take as many notes as possible, write everything down if you can, so that you can really refresh your memory about candidates, and you apply consistency, you remember everything, so it's easy to compare each candidate against each other when you're making your decision as to who to invite into your interview. A really good tip that I probably should have mentioned before the templated document section is to organise the call. So don't just ring the candidate and go into this call. If they're really worried about finding a job, when you ask them, have you got a few minutes to talk? They're always going to say yes, but they might be like picking the kids up from school, or they might be in the middle of Asda, or they might be at work if they still have a job. So don't just ring them up, because you might put them on the spot and you won't get the they won't make the best impact on you potentially, and then you might judge them for it and not give them another chance. So I would always ring them up to organise it, because and if we go back to one of the very first stories that I told you about the guy that invited people to an interview just from an email and then people didn't show up. Don't just do that. So ring them and say, just quickly explain who you are, why you're calling, are they free for a chat? Because don't worry, you can always ring them back, but you just want to arrange a phone call so they don't feel stressed, that they're like, oh my God, I didn't know this was happening, I'm not prepared, I'm not at home, I've not done my research, I don't know what to do. So just quickly say what the situation is, so put them at ease. If they're not, and then you could always email them the availability, but I would always ring them first. Give that first impression positively, and then email your availability, and then they can pick the slot that's best for them. Then they're in a quiet place, they can be organised, they know to expect your call, because it's going to take about 20 to 30 minutes, I think. Don't be just ringing them up off the cuff, talking to them about your business for 10 minutes, and then that's it. That is not a good screening call. You're not doing any screening. You're just ringing them up to talk to them about yourself, which is quite narcissistic. So yeah, calls can be, I would allow half an hour for your call. You might not use all that time, but you might. And I don't want people to be rushed, because this is the first time you're talking to a candidate. You need to tell them about you, the business, the opportunity, and you also need to find out about them as well. It's all about really getting to know the candidate, as well as selling to them. So be interested, be curious. Oh, I've clicked too far on my slides. So when you're putting together your document, you want the date, the job, who you are that did the interview, or it might not be you, what else you need to put on, and then it's kind of questions. I would start with the soft questions, so tell me a little bit about yourself, what do you like to get up to outside of work, what's important to you, what are you motivated by, what drives you, all these kinds of questions. And then obviously depending on the job itself, so you're going to have you'll have a standard template, and then for each individual job you'll eventually start to build up this library of content of templates for your screening calls. So if it's an IT job, you're going to be asking them technical questions about their IT experience, specific technology, program, software, etc. If it's sales, you're going to want to know about how they structure their day, how do they generate leads and new business, are they used to working to targets, how do they ensure success, all these different kinds of things. So there are what I would call the technical or specific questions related to the job at hand. And then you've got your standard compliance questions. So are they eligible to work in the UK? That is a big thing that you kind of need to know. If they are eligible, ask them, do they have a British passport or do they have a visa? And then you'll need to know, if they're on a visa, what are the details of that visa, because it's up to you to go and do your compliance to make sure that someone is eligible to work in the UK. I would always ask them if they drive, even if you don't need to specifically have them drive for this job. It's always good information to know what's the notice period, what salary are they on, what salary are they looking for, how much notice do they need to be ready for an interview, have they got any holidays coming up? This is a big question, because you need to know, is that going to delay your entire recruitment process if you want to interview this person, or will it mean it might delay their start date, or it could even mean that they start and then a week later they're going on holiday. So it's really good information to know. I always like to ask as well, how's their job search going? Have they had many interviews? Have they got many coming up? Because you want to assess how much competition you've got, and also if you know when their other interviews are, you know whether you might need to hurry up. If you absolutely love them, but they've got a final stage like tomorrow, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to hurry up. I'm going to have to interview them quickly. Otherwise, I might lose them. So a lot of questions will give you lots of different types of information. But it's really good to have this template for every single job that you hire for in your business, because it allows for you to be consistent with everyone that applies. You can pair candidates effectively, and you can really maximise the positive results of your recruitment process. So I think that is everything I wanted to talk to you about on candidate screening. Don't think Louis is very interested in this topic, but hopefully he wakes up for the next video.